next, Franca. Yes, Franca from Germany.
Yes, hello.
Yes, yes. The Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons entered into force in January of this year. So, although it's being largely ignored and undermined by nuclear weapon states and allies, it's one treaty that is meant to change international norms. How do you think European activists are using this treaty to advocate for a nuclear weapon-free world? And are you getting involved as medical students in using the TPNW to advocate for abolition of nuclear weapons?
Yeah, thank you very much, Sally, and thanks to all of you for inviting me to this event as well. And thank you, Olfert and Shoki, for your answers that just came before me. I think also many of your points and also what Shoki mentioned are very important. I come back to them later. But talking about the first point of your question, Sally, how the TPNW is used in Europe, I think you first have to remind the special situation in Europe, which is that we have 2 nuclear weapon states, France and the UK, as well as 3 states who are in the nuclear sharing, which means that they are hosting US weapons on their soil. And for example, in Germany, German soldiers are practicing the use of these weapons. So although we are geographically a very small continent, we have quite a big amount of nuclear weapons here. And then, of course, in Russia as well. But the nuclear sharing is basically a topic that is not very well known in Germany, at least, and in many other European countries as well. So we are really trying to push this into the agenda of the different political parties. In Germany, we have the national elections coming up in September, and we are trying to make this a point of discussion, because every country is actually investing in the modernization of these weapons. And one way how we do this is, for example, the peace camp in Bücher, that's the US air base where the weapons are based. And it's a protest camp which happens every year, organized by young students. It's very diverse. And as Setsuko mentioned earlier, I think it's the creative energy and way of protesting that is presented there. And it's really welcoming to many other people, and it's growing every year. But we don't only do this in Germany at the airbase, but trying also to connect the airbase in the Dutch airbase in Volkel and the Belgium airbase, where US weapons are positioned as well. We're trying to do this by bike tours, which is has come a traditional way of protesting for many IPPNW members. But again, these bike tours are meant to raise awareness among the ordinary society by cycling through just villages that are very close to the air bases and that have somehow maybe become used to this special situation that they are living in with nuclear weapons being so close to them. And we're trying to talk to people on the way and do protests and demonstrations at the airbase as well as on the way. These bike tours will take place this year as well and have taken place last year. Even in Corona times, we managed to organize that. And then this is also all in line with one of the pan-European campaigns, which is No Nukes in Europe. And they basically have a very simple idea, which is summarized in 3 points. First of all, end the modernization of these weapons, which I said is already taking place in many countries, and then end the nuclear sharing, and finally sign and ratify the treaty on the prohibition of nuclear weapons. So this is basically the strategy we are pushing to. In Germany, for example, we are also trying to get the government to join the first meeting of States Party, which is scheduled early 2022 in Vienna. And we're trying to push the German government to join the treaty, not as a States Party, but as an observer. And also many other European IPPNW groups are trying to do this. At the same time, for at least Germany, the moment of signing the treaty is still far into future, I must say, but we're trying to make them at least work on some articles of the treaty, for example, the victim assistance article, and make them, remediation, make them, help the victims and recognize the victims of uranium mining, which has taken place in Eastern Germany for quite many years. So there are different activities, some of them being very political, some of them are taking place on the streets, but medical students can definitely get involved and are getting involved. As I said, the protest camps at the airbase are mainly organized by young medical students, but also from other fields. And I think very much in line with what Olfert has summarized so greatly. The first thing, or one of the first things that's always very important, is to educate young students, because as also Shoki said, I think it's our duty, but also our right to have an opinion on this. And it can be, the nuclear weapon topic can be quite an intimidating topic. And so people, young students, first of all, have to get some self-confidence on this topic to then build their own opinion and speak up to the decision makers. For example, in Germany, we have a Keypedia, which is a weekend of an educational weekend where we get trained to become ambassadors. And this is something that can be transformed and also used with the film. I think we talked about this earlier, that alongside with the film, The Vow, there has been some training material being developed. And I think this is a great thing to be shared. Watch the film, get into touch with the topic, and then educate yourself.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we have different activities on the international level as well. I think you can follow and get an idea about the different events that are hosted by IPPNW by following us on the social media channels, as Ilfert said, eConnect. And of course, not only eConnect, but also on the local level, try to connect with different students and make this topic more public and more, raise awareness about this topic, because it's something that young people don't talk about because it's somehow history to them, but it's really not. As I said, all the nuclear weapons countries are modernizing their arsenals. And it's an ongoing threat that we are living in, and it's getting more complicated, as Olfert said. The conflicts are rising with the COVID pandemic, the climate crisis. It's all getting even more dangerous. So stay in touch with your local IPPNW chapter or make your own, not only within IPPNW, but also with your medical faculty and other medical associations that you're working in. For example, the IFMSA for students or the World Medical Association for young doctors. And also within these organizations, the topic needs to be raised. And we've done this somehow successfully, but I think it can be very much improved within the IFMSA. We've developed seminars there and did workshops on the topic, but it just has to get more attention. And then there are different possibilities to raise awareness very practically. We have this idea of using a Target X project, where you somehow simulate a nuclear attack on campus, for example, or in your city. We have a guideline how to organize this event with your local student group. It's not very hard and can be quite effective. And then, of course, there are other campaigns that you can just join. For example, the divestment campaign from ICANN, Don't Bank on the Bomb. Check your university investments, the investments of your university, whether they invest in nuclear weapon development, or your bank account, or your on the state level. And then, of course, get your local government to sign the treaty with the ICANN Cities Appeal. Symbolically. We have quite a few cities in Germany and all over Europe who've already signed the treaty symbolically and somehow thereby pressured the national government to sign the treaty eventually. So these are some ideas that I'll be happy to share, and they can all be found on the IPPNW website or on the ICANN website. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. Thank you.